Chris to think about, if, start to play a game here, if you got additional money, how would you target it against '09? And we know that we have some needs this year that are unmet, unanticipated costs, and then going forward in 10 and 11.
And there's also a difference between the federal fiscal year and the state fiscal year and our fiscal year.
Right.
So there's a mismatch there of a few, 3 months.
Right.
Just to provide a few examples of what David was just talking about, for the IDEA money or the special ed money, they say an LEA, which is a local education authority, I believe that's
Right.
us.
That's us.
Must use IDEA recovery funds only for the excess costs of providing special education and related services to children with disabilities, except where IDEA specifically provides otherwise. As a guy with a college degree, I don't understand what that sentence means, but you know, it's that. But then later they say, and I'll ask Chris to comment on this. They say something about Part B, if your town has fiscal issues, you can use the IDEA somehow to offset some costs to put more money back into the operating budget. So Chris, I don't know if you have any.
Do you want to come up? This is Christine Gageau, our Director of People Personnel Services.
Everybody, there's a couple of issues. Right now, the money that's used out of the federal grant can't go for what the town has already paid for.
This is the new grant, or
Any federal
grant?
monies.
Okay.
So that it always has to be either for new things or things that have always been on the grant.
Which is why they have that list they suggested.
That's why they have a
Okay.
list. In addition, you can spend a very small percentage, 10%, toward regular ed, but it has to be in anticipation of students who might become special ed. So if you have a group of students who are struggling but haven't been identified as special ed, you can use that money to assist them, sort of like Title I money, except that you have to track them and you have to track their progress. So for us, it would be a small, in the past, $40,000 or less amount of money to put towards a very small group of students. So that's what they're talking about when they say, except when allowed. It has to be all special ed, except when allowed. That's the when allowed.
So is your understanding of this new money that we can't take it and apply it toward some of our existing tuitions that we're paying out of district or other costs?
Well, you don't want to apply it towards typically out-of-district tuitions, because if you use federal money to pay for it, then you can't collect circuit breaker.
Right, okay.
So you're double dipping.
Okay.
If it's a tuition under the circuit breaker threshold, which next year will be about 35,000, of which we have a few students, you could use it for those students, and we have done that in the past. Okay.
Then there's one other part of the story we've heard with the stimulus money is prevent job loss, save jobs. So, and these are some documents that have come out from the federal government. So you look at one of them here, and it tells you want to spend the money as quickly as possible, and the goal is to have the resources to avert cuts and retain teachers and professors, because some of this money can go to higher ed. And they want, as I say, they want to distribute this as quickly as possible. Then you go in the next page, and it says, invest one-time funds thoughtfully to minimize the funding cliff, because the money won't be around in a couple of years. So if you're using this money to pay teachers to avoid layoffs, but then they're telling you don't spend it on teachers because the money won't be here in 2 years. I guess that's part of the problem I have with knowing what we're going to do with this money at this point, because they're making it clear that they don't want us to lay anybody off, which is a good thing, but on the other hand, they're saying don't use it and fall off the funding cliff. And I just, there is one other comment in here about the states are gonna be required to maintain their, it says, as part of the state's application, each governor must include an assurance that the state will maintain the same level of support for elementary, secondary, and post-secondary education in fiscal year 2009 through fiscal year 2011. But then it adds, as it did in fiscal year 2006. So I have no idea what that means, other than they're saying they have to at least fund the 2006 levels. So I just wanted to demonstrate that there is a great deal of confusion in the documentation we're getting, and it makes it difficult to put a budget together.
I think though that there probably are some school districts that have small capital purchases in their budget, and they can shift those funds.
Maybe, yeah.
No, but we
Yeah,
don't.
we don't.
I mean, we already eliminated textbooks and library books and classroom equipment like smart boards and science lab equipment we don't have. So, you know, if you were a district that weren't as bare bones, you would be shifting those funds.
Right.
So, we're stuck.
And again, you could say, well, we'll use all that money and we'll pay for maintenance of the schools and school supplies, but still in
not
2
in the
years, it's
budget.
not gonna be there, so.
And it isn't there now to free up money for other things.
Right.
So
Okay, we'll
on that list, and actually at your places tonight is yet another updated version. And there's 21, there's an add back. You should have that at your place.
20, right?
It's 21,
It
there's a new
should
one.
say, there should be a new one at your place.
Oh,
And it should have 21
okay.
on there. I learned on Friday that we have a student from North Reading who has made application to Minuteman Regional High School. This is Minuteman is not our member vocational school. And as the committee is aware, any tuitions for members through the Northeast Regional Vocational School in Wakefield, that is a separate budget. And so any North Reading student attending that falls underneath the vocational budget, which is outside of the school department's budget. But when a student attends a non-member vocational school, then the tuition costs would be assumed under our budget. So as I said, on Friday I received notice of this application. I have an opportunity to review that application and determine whether or not the program that the student is applying to is being mimicked at the Northeast Regional Vocational School. If it is not, then that student is entitled to attend Minuteman. And actually, the tuition costs here would be higher than what I've listed by about $4,000. So it's probably around $20,000. And that does not include transportation, which we would fund that transportation through our special education.
You have to pay the transportation
That's
also?
correct. Right. So I don't have the transportation costs. I don't know whether Chris can give me an estimate of, it's about,
Approximately $50 a day.
okay, so another 5,000 to 6,000. Oh, more than that.
$9,000.
$9,000.
Is that a state law that we have to pay for the transportation?
It depends upon the need of the student, correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So minimally, I need to add back at least 20 in a tuition account, and then probably another 8 to 9 in a transportation account. So I think it would be safe to say if we added $30,000, would cover this, and I don't know if there will be other students, but this is the first one. So
Okay.
I had proposed actually to take this out. And was that reflected on here? You never took it out originally? Oh, no, you did take it out.
I did take it
Oh,
out.
that's what it is. No, so number 21 is no longer valid. I actually said to Carl on Friday, oh, here's the finding, let's, because I didn't think we were gonna get another student. We updated it on March 6th, and then later in the day, I
Give you
found out
timestamps
another
instead
student,
of just the
so,
date stamp.
right. So actually, 21 should not even be there.
Well, no, it did not exist in the level services budget. So the reason I put it back into level 1 as a minus is because the way the math works, it's an additional cost.
Okay, and less of a reduction.
Right,
Right.
so it has to be there.
You know what, Mel? I think you're right that we shouldn't count on the stimulus money. So if we're not going to count on that, and we're looking at a $1 million gap, I think that the additional items that the superintendent has added to level one, I think they're the kind of things you would do anyway.
No, I wouldn't decrease
You
the
don't
heating
think-
budget. I wouldn't necessarily reduce HR ads.
But
Some of them we would, and maybe David, like the correction, the salary, but I wouldn't reduce summer painting, for example.
Well, if I could go through each
Yeah,
one of
I
these,
think it
Dave,
would,
so you can
yeah.
hear the thinking behind this. The item number 13 was to increase the offset from the athletic revolving account against coaches' salaries. And this should be found on page 10 in the budget. Last year in FY09, if you go all the way to the bottom of page 10, you see the charge against the athletic revolving account for all of these 36, 38 or more coaches. And last year, we took 90,000 from the revolving account. What our preliminary budget had targeted 60,000, less of an offset against coaches. So if the committee accepts this item number 13, then it would increase the offset against coaches' salaries by 10,000 for a total of 7.
Is that money available without increasing fees?
That money should be available without.
So that's a balance, it's in the
That's a
revolving
balance.
account.
We're-
The
we're
rest of the
looking-
revolving account pays other expenses associated with the athletic
Absolutely.
program.
So that's something we
So
should
a
do
balance.
anyway.
Right.
It all depends on what kind of balance you want a year in. I think that we increased athletic fees this year, and it appeared to me that the end-of-year balance in athletic revolving would have been will be in the high 30s, is my best guess. So our thinking was that possibly that balance is more than we want to see. So we can bring it down by $10,000 through an
But
additional
just
offset.
from available funds. then.
Right.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Okay, the next one, item number 14, again, Carl and I spent some time going through this preliminary level services budget, seeing if there were other areas that we could even become more conservative than we already are. And one of the areas was in the summer painting that's done across the schools, across the district. Typically, we hire some staff members, some students, and they do a terrific job at really sprucing up classrooms and corridors of all of our schools. It's a very long targeted list of the painting detail, and that starts right at the beginning of the summer and goes pretty much through the entire summer. What item number 14 is saying is that it would reduce that effort by about 50%. And that we would be looking for volunteers, parent volunteers, other community members who might come in and lend a hand. So that's really what's behind number 14. Number 15 I've already described. It is we transposed the interim salary into FY10. It does not belong there, and it should be zeroed out. So that one in my mind, is a definite change. Item number 16. This is a question. It's something to think about. That I know that through Wayne's efforts and the principals and the staff and students, great strides have been made to reduce heating and utility costs, and that over the last 2 years the town has set up sort of a reserve account for fuel, and we've also